Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Katie Halper Show. We are so excited to be here with you in Zohran Mamdani's New York City. Zohran Mamdani's America. It's all of our New York City and all of our America, but we're definitely excited to have him be part of it on a mayoral level. And of course, everyone knows he won the election, and that's very exciting. And we've been covering this on this show his campaign. We interviewed him in 2023 about the Gaza hunger strike that he was engaging in. We talked to him about his activism around taxi drivers. And so we are really excited that he won the election. He got that famous Katie Halper Show bump. I think we can all agree that was the make or break moment was when he went on the show in 2023. And I'm really, really excited to be bringing onto the stage Sumaya Awad, who is a Palestinian New Yorker, writer and organizer, and member of NYC-DSA. She's co-editor of the book Palestine, a Socialist Introduction. And we're bringing on Beth Miller, who is the political director of Jewish Voice for Peace Action, where she spearheads the organization's congressional advocacy and electoral organizing. Welcome, Sumaya and Beth.
It's great
Thanks
to
so
be
much
here.
for having us on.
Yes, really excited about this. You guys must be really excited. Tell us about each of your roles in this campaign, what you did to help make it happen, what your different organizations did, and what inspired you to get involved.
Go ahead, Beth.
Yeah, well, so excited to be on with you, Katie. So, like you said, when introducing me, I'm the political director with Jewish Voice for Peace Action. And JVP Action, I'm very proud to say, endorsed Zohran Mamdani on the day he launched his campaign in October of 2024. We endorsed him because JVPA has known and been working with Zohran for many, many years during his time as a state legislator. And we saw firsthand that he was a politician and a leader who showed moral consistency, meaning that he cared not only about our communities here in New York, but about communities around the world, and refused to exclude Palestinians from that, like so many elected officials try to do. So JVP Action mobilized thousands and thousands of volunteers as part of Zohran's historic volunteer turnout campaign. And we launched canvases across 4 boroughs that knocked about 200,000 doors across during the primary and the general. And we also co-led a coalition called Jews for Zohran, along with Jews for Racial and Economic Justice. So together, JVPA and JFREJ made up Jews for Zohran to show that, in fact, there were tens of thousands of Jewish New Yorkers who were thrilled, excited, and are now celebrating Mayor Mamdani.
Yeah. And so you did 4 of the boroughs. I guess you didn't even try with Staten Island, right?
You know what? It was actually the Bronx. We were in Staten Island.
Why didn't you do the Bronx?
It was just where we had our leads ready to go.
Oh, okay. That's funny. Yeah. I was like, wow, you really gave up on Staten Island. Understandable. But okay. Yeah. And what about you, Sumaya?
Yeah, so, Zohran is a member of New York City DSA, not just a member, a leader in the chapter in so many ways. And previous to his run for mayor, he was a state assembly member in Astoria and ran for office through DSA as a democratic socialist. And a big part of this campaign was DSA and New York City DSA specifically. There's like so much to talk about, but the thing that I think I want to emphasize was the massive field operation that DSA organized and structured, and that brought in so many other organizations, including JVPA, JFREJ, COV, DRUM, etc., that was able to spread out across the entire city really early on, like before it was popular, back when he was polling at 1%, which was not even a year ago. We're talking like January 2025. And then it just kept growing and growing, and there are canvases every single week. And soon they became almost every single day. And I think this field operation and Tasha, who sort of led this and spoke at the victory rally after the results were announced, is in many ways the mastermind behind all of this. I mean, 104,000 volunteers. And after the primary win, shortly after, DSA New York City reached 10,000 members. So it also just really ballooned. I'm actually not sure what the numbers are right now after the Tuesday victory, but I think that was a really, really important part of this, and part of just popularizing socialist politics, and connecting it through coalition with all these other groups that are doing organizing across the boroughs. Another big thing, and part of what I was a part of, and Beth as well, with Zohran, and it was previous to his running for mayor, but sort of continued with that, was organizing around Palestine in the city and connecting Palestine to local politics. And there's many examples of that that hopefully we'll talk about later. But the one I want to mention right now is the Not on Our Dime campaign, which Zohran entered as an assembly member and with New York City DSA in coalition with other groups working specifically around Palestinian rights. And it was like a precursor to what we later saw him do in the campaign, which is connect Palestine, U.S. complicity to why it matters to New Yorkers, to why this is not just a foreign policy issue, but this is a New York issue, and that our own tax dollars should not be subsidizing the funding of illegal settlements built on Palestinian land, and instead should be helping us fund infrastructure in our city and schools and healthcare, et cetera.
Yeah, can you guys talk more about that Not Another Dime campaign? Because I think it is exactly what you just said, Sumaya, a perfect example of how this issue is a local issue as well as a foreign policy one.
So Not on Our Dime began many years ago. The idea of it came about many years ago with just trying to think about how to hold accountable organizations that operate from New York City that are raising hundreds of thousands of dollars annually, millions actually, to help fund the building of illegal settlements in the occupied West Bank. And these organizations were masquerading as charities. So your donations are tax exempt, and sending this money overseas. And we wanted to put a stop to that, and we wanted to highlight the contradictions of that and the hypocrisy and the fact that these are, this is violations of international law. They're violations of New York human rights law. And at the time, we began working with Zohran and thinking through what is legislation that can be passed on the state level to hold these organizations accountable, to strip them of their status as charity organizations. And with his team, the idea came up of the Not on Our Dime Act, of, our money should not be going, not even a single dime should be going to fund war crimes and violations of international law. And it was a really incredible coalition of organizations, Jewish organizations, Palestinian organizations, legal organizations who came together and introduced, through Zohran, introduced this legislation. And of course, it was introduced by the DSA candidate, Zohran, in assembly, but then also signed on by other members of the state assembly, and then in the state senate by Jabari Prisport, a DSA elected in the state senate.
Another former guest.
Another former, great. Jabari is amazing. And that it was launched in 2023. That feels like so long ago now.
It's so long ago.
Right? And I'll say one more thing and then I'll pass it to Beth because there's a lot more to say. So it launched in 2023 with a big Albany Day, lobbying day. And then a year later, the genocide had begun. And at that time, we chose to expand it. So originally, it was just focused on the occupied West Bank. And in 2024, we expanded it to include Gaza because many of these same organizations were fundraising to send uniforms to the IDF and other things. And so we expanded it to include Gaza. And I think that was a really important part of the organizing and sort of really emblematic of Zohran's politics of consistency, right? And that moral clarity around Palestinian rights is part of what we care about as New Yorkers. It's not an aside. It's not a stepping out of my way to talk about it, that it's actually really ingrained in how we talk about anything, for really here to build working class power for every New Yorker with no exceptions.
I was actually going to ask you, Sumaya, about an interesting comment that Eric Adams made, because you're talking about the role of, Palestine as an issue, as a local issue, and there's been a lot of weaponization, I would say, in this race of identity politics, in a way where people like to claim to speak for an entire community, whether that's, as we've seen a lot with the ADL, the Jewish New Yorkers, and in some cases, like this case with Eric Adams, he felt free, took the liberty of speaking for Muslims. So this is Ross Barkan, who's covered Zohran Mamdani, who also, by the way, we interviewed him today on Useful Idiots, the other show that I host. I co-host with Aaron Mate. Ross Barkan ran for state senate, and his campaign manager was Zohran Mamdani, which is I had forgotten about. And of course, I guess he's a self-loathing Jew, so he hired an anti-Semite to manage his campaign. So Ross Barkan was covering this. This is from October 30th, and he's, Eric Adams is speaking somewhere and says, "I have not seen one Muslim who supports the philosophy of the DSA." Eric Adams says of Zohran Mamdani, he is representing the gentrifiers. His policies benefit them. So, Sumaya, you tweeted in response to this that you were both Muslim here and proud member of NYC-DSA. What is your response? Can you elaborate on this response in case Eric is watching? And we know he has free time now. So,
To quote Zohran, if Eric Adams is watching, turn up the volume.
yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's that quote really shows how out of touch Eric Adams is with the electorate and who is voting for Zohran and where a lot of his numbers are coming from, because the reality is the majority of Muslims in this city have come out in support of Zohran. The Yemeni Association, the Bodega Association, countless mosques and Muslim organizations in the city, and they're not all doing it because they think he's not a socialist or not affiliated with New York City DSA, because he's very vocal about that. Right. They're doing it because the politics of New York City DSA, the politics of the socialism that we are a part of, is that working class people should have basic rights, is that they should be able to have power over their livelihoods. And that's where rent freeze comes from. I mean, in the quote, Adam says the gentrifiers are the ones backing him. I mean, sure, there's some gentrifiers, but the reality is it's everybody that is a tenant in New York that is struggling to pay rent, that knows what it's like to try to search for an apartment near your work or near your child's school, and that struggles day to day, or that has to move out of the city or move out of the borough they're in or where their family lives, etc., because they can't afford it. And so I think the politics of DSA is really simple. It's that people should be able to pay their rent without, surviving day to day, that they should be able to thrive and pay their rent, that their children should be able to go to good schools, and their children should have good childcare until age 5 so that the parents can work, and that transportation should be good. It should work. It should be fast so that we can be able to live our lives. Such basic things that's at the heart of this. And the reality is that anyone who sees this and reads this is like, oh yeah, I should have those things. And I think that's exactly why Zohran won. I think that's exactly why people voted for him, because they're like, these are basic things. How is anybody framing these as scary? How is anyone saying New York's going to get worse when what he's calling for is to make people's lives better?